Hi guys, welcome back to Block by Minute channel. Today what I am going to discuss about is why we need blockchain. As blockchain is a hype word around the world and there are many companies and industries like to move towards blockchain and like to use blockchain in their current process and applications. But many of them will have a base questions why they actually need blockchain or if they have a project or use case, how to decide whether they need to go for a blockchain or not. For that, today I'm going to use first principle reasoning that mostly famous in physics. So I'm going to use first principle reasoning to give a reason why they actually need blockchain, or if they have a project or use case based on which principles they can decide whether they need to go for a blockchain or not. So for that I'm going to start with the fundamentals as the network types. So that will help everyone to understand why they actually need blockchain in their projects. So first we'll start with centralized one. As you can see in the image, it's kind of a central point of control. So everyone else will connect to the central system and access whatever things they needed. It's more like you're hosting your website in a central server and everyone will hit to that same endpoint, and if the central server is down, that means no one can use that service. If we move towards the next one as the distributed one, so you can see in the image as well, currently there are around 15 nodes connected to there. So that means you can imagine as a 15 servers hosting the same website, and each and every person will hit to the different servers and access to that one. If 1.1 server is down, that means they can switch to another server and access the same stuff as well. But it's controlling some sort of the issues from the centralized issues, but it's not everything. As if the 15 servers are down at one time, that means the whole network is down and we can't do any stuffs. But if we look at the decentralized one, it's more like each and every node acts as each and every server. So they are not dependent on other ones, and if the one node is down or one branch of the node is down, that will not affect the whole network. They can perform whatever things they're doing currently without caring about the ones who are down, and once the ones are down that are up and sync with the network, then they can also perform as well. So it's more like each and every node acts as a server and they'll have the data and the code as well. So this is the advantage of the decentralized one. And if you think as if you are moving from current applications to the blockchain, that means we are moving from centralized or mostly centralized to decentralized. So why we actually need to move from decentralized to decentralized is removing the central point of control and giving the control to everyone, and everyone in the network have the same privilege and they are all equal. So there's no single person or a group of nodes that are controlling the server or controlling the network is not feasible in the decentralized network systems. So I'm going to use a couple of use cases to explain more about why you need blockchain and stuff. So for the first one, I'm going to use property transfer, where Mark has a house and Alice has some money. So Mark needs to transfer the ownership of his house to Alice. But Mark and Alice are not two untrusted entities. They are not trusting each other. So they want to go for a central person who they both can trust. So for that, they will choose an advocate or a legal advisor, and then he will write an agreement saying that Mark transferring his house ownership to the Alice, and based on this much of amount, and then he will also get some amount as a service amount for the service that he is doing, and then the transaction will happen. So this is more like we can relate to the centralized systems. We are the central party as the advocate, and Alice and Mark going there and performing things, and the full control of this transactions and performance will depend on the central party as a legal advisor. So if we think about the next level, there's no central party, that means there's no advocate, and if there's no advocate, then we don't need to pay anything for him. And then Mark and Alice comes together and create an agreement, and then Mark will transfer the ownership of his house and Alice will transfer the money to Mark. This is cool, but what is the actual issue here was Mark and Alice are two untrusted entities, and Alice not trust Mark and Mark not trust Alice. What is the actual issue is trust. So we want to build a trust between Mark and Alice, so that's why they go for the central party. So we remove the central issue. So what we're going to replace here? So for that, we can replace easily using a blockchain. So if we use a blockchain, then what will happen was Mark will create an agreement saying that I am transferring this ownership to Alice, and then transfer that agreement to Alice, and then Alice will go through that one, and once Alice is okay, then she will be signed that one, and Mark also signed the agreement, and then once it's signed, it will be published to all the nodes in the network. You can easily relate that all the nodes as all the citizens in your country, so everyone will know that, everyone will have the copy now. saying that Mark transfer this house ownership to Alice. So once this was done, the transaction will be proceed and the Mark ownership, house ownership will transfer to Alice and the money will be transferred to Mark. So this is what will happen if you use the blockchain. So the second one is the money transfer. So if you take it as a money transfer where Mark has dollars in US and he needs to transfer some money to Alice in Japan. So the ideal process is Mark will go to the US bank and transfer that money to US bank, or he can use online app to transfer money to US bank as well. So then US bank will charge some money for that transaction and then it will be transferred that dollars to Japan bank, and Japan bank will convert that to yen and then it will be charged some money when Alice is going to retrieve the money as well. So it's more like there's a two central entities there, because Mark not trusting anyone and there's no other way for Mark to transfer it to Alice, and then they need to trust two entities and then that process happening through bank. But what will happen if you use a blockchain? If you use a blockchain as a central currency, as a Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever the things, and we'll transfer that money to Alice, and then what will happen is that will be recorded in all the nodes that are in the system. So here why we are using actually bank is there are two reasons. One is we don't have any other trusted party to do those things, and Mark can't fly to Japan to give that money as well. So for that, what Mark doing was he's trusting the bank and transferring that money, and then the bank will transfer to Alice. And another way what happens was Mark has a bank account and he has the money. So for the verification part, how much money actually Mark has and all the process need to be done by bank. So the verification purposes, we are trusting a person or an entity or organization to do those things. But if it comes to the blockchain, what will happen is it will be trusted by a community or trusted based on the smart contract. So smart contract is basically a logical piece of a code. We are trusting that code and the code will perform everything according to that, or we will trust the consensus algorithms. So if we transferring money using a blockchain, that means the consensus algorithms will come and each and every node will do a validation and check that whether Mark has actual balance to transfer it and Alice actually having the account to get that money as well. So that will be the ideal process in blockchain. So the next thing I'm going to discuss about is what are the reasons that you need to move to blockchain. So the first reason is trust. If you're going to improve a trust in a use case or a project, then it's totally worth to go for a blockchain. And the second one is if you are using a current use case or a current application or current process and removing the middleman from that, then it's totally worth to go for a blockchain, and that's easiest and trusted way to remove the middleman from the system. And the third one is if you're going for smart verifications in your project, then you can go for a blockchain. Like if you're going to verify something like ownership of the smart verification, or if you're going to verify whether this guy has this much of money in his account by the smart verifications during the process, then you can do that one. That means you are reducing so much of work in your current process and letting the smart contracts or consensus algorithms to perform that one. And then proving the ownership and tracking the ownership. So if you are tracking the ownership like houses and stuff, so then you can use blockchain to track the ownership from the point that the house was built and until now, how the transformation of the ownership transferred and everything. So the next one is if you're going to improve the transaction speed between the systems. So similar like if you're taking as a cryptocurrency scenario, that is the use case that they implemented for the inter-country money transaction with high speed and with a low cost as well. So the third one is security. So if you're going to host some data and host some transactions or tracking the ownership of the transactions or whatever things in a secure manner, because the blockchain is highly secure application, no one can hack that one, no one can break the system because it's mostly stored based on the hashes and it's linked back to the hashes as well. So I'll discuss about each of these base principles in detail in future videos. So if you're going to improve your system's security and stuff, then it's totally worth to go for a blockchain. And the next one is the downtime. So as I mentioned, the centralized servers to decentralized one, as you can see in the image as well in the previous scenarios, where there's no central point of control and central point of downtime. So if we implementing and deploying a smart contract or application in decentralized manner, then it will be hosted in all the nodes. So if one node is down, also your system is not down because it will run until at least two nodes running the system. The next one is anonymity. So if you're going to improve anonymity of your users in your applications or stuff, then it's totally worth to go for a blockchain, because in the blockchain world your entity will be known as you will be known as your public key. So the public key contains a bunch of numbers and characters, so it's not tied with any identities. If you want, you can tie it, but it's normally not tied it with any identities in the terms of use cases like cryptocurrencies and stuff, because they want privacy and stuff. But if you want to tie it with an identity, that's totally possible as well. And the next one is hacking. So the blockchain is not possible to hack. As you can see, the Bitcoin is still not hacked, and that is the one solid reason we can provide for the hacking. And the next major question everyone will have is when to go for a blockchain. If you have a project or a use case, how to decide whether you need to go for a blockchain or not. As I mentioned in the previous slide as well, the 8 principles of the blockchain. So those are the fundamental principles, or first principle we can call it. And if your project or a use case that strongly depend on one or many of those principles, then it's totally worth to go for a blockchain. But as I mentioned previously, it's more like you are moving from transforming from centralized to the decentralized one. It's possible to transform each and every use case that currently is centralized to decentralized, but it's not worth to do it. If you want to do a proper one using a blockchain, and if you want to think, if you have a use case and a project, if you want to think whether you need to go for a blockchain or not, first you need to understand which of the principles your project is highly dependent on. If it comes under one of these 8 principles, then it's totally worth to go for it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to do more future videos about underlying concept of blockchain like mining, Merkle trees, and proof of works and all. So please shoot out the questions about this video under the comment sections, and if you like the video, please like it and please subscribe for more videos. Thank you.